What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the Tribe of Runners podcast. I'm your host, Liz Myers, and today I am having three guests on the podcast. So bear with us. I'm sure we will laugh way too much, talk over each other quite a bit, and maybe have some awkward silences when we're trying to figure out who should talk over each other. But I have the Badwater 135 crew here and Kaylee Frederick. So, if any of you don't know, this year I went out and crewed Kaylee Frederick for the Badwater 135 with Andy and Marissa. These are two people I have never met before. Well, I lied. I met them last year at Badwater for I think a breakfast, and we casually conversated for a little bit, but I knew Kaylee beforehand, got to know her, and then she'd asked me to join her for this year. So super honored to go out there and run with everyone and get Kaylee to the finish. But before we get into any more details about the whole experience, Kaylee, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for being on again and getting ready to talk all things Badwater 135.
What's up? Thanks for having me back on the podcast. I'm excited to talk about running because who doesn't like to talk about running?
Yeah, exactly. We would literally probably, with all of us on here, we would probably talk way too long. So I will try to keep everyone here for not too long. But I want to say, shout out to you, A, for having me be on your crew and be a part of this team. And I truly appreciate you, thinking of me and wanting me to be out there. And it was such an honor to be there and see Andy and Marissa out there and just like the bond that you guys have with everyone. It was so cool. You guys didn't make me feel like an outsider, which is really, really special because, it's kind of intimidating going in with three people that know each other really well. And I've, outside of crewing Kaylee at the Keys, I'd never really crewed her with someone else. So it was super cool to meet everyone. But tell us how you met Andy, how you met Marissa, and like how and why they were on the team and all that good stuff.
So we'll start with Andrew. I met Andrew 3 years ago whenever I was looking for a crew the first year I ran Badwater. He was like, hey, that sounds cool. I'll do that. And then, so he crewed for me the first year I went to Badwater. He was like, I'm never coming back here again. And he swore he was never going to go back to Death Valley again in his whole life. And then we just kind of stayed friends after that. And then last year when I ran Badwater, my crew chief dropped out kind of last minute. So Andrew stepped up and decided to come back. And we had a rough go at things last year. So this year, whenever I asked him to come, he very willingly agreed to come. And yeah, and this year we were very happy with it. And Andrew and I have just kind of stayed friends. Um, and we run together and we have our cute little Frederick Boyd competition every year. And then Marissa I met at my gym at CrossFit Incline and we just kind of became friends and she got into ultra marathon running and she's one of the sweetest ladies ever. So I invited her to crew for me at Badwater, and she crewed for me last year at Badwater and at Badwater Salton Sea, and we liked her a lot. So we brought her back for another year.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I love that. So let's get into Andy and Marissa. So I will go with Andy first because Kaylee went with Andy first. So Andy, kind of explain to us how you got into running, and then obviously you've reached out to Kaylee to crew for Badwater. So why did you do that? Do you want to run Badwater? Tell us a little about yourself and what interests you with Badwater 135.
Yeah, my story into running's not anything spectacular. I just was a little overweight, kind of bored of doing nothing, so started going to the gym, and then that got me on the treadmill, and that led to running. And it was just a couple miles here and there, like most of us, and then I started getting a little bit further, and then a friend of mine reached out and asked if I would pace him, and that was my first ever seeing ultra running. And like most of us, I never knew anything was longer than a marathon, and I saw him running through the woods, and I got to run 24 miles with him. So I'm like, this is pretty cool. I got to try it. So that led me to the Laurel Highland 70 miler, and I've done that 4 straight years since that time, and been checking out other races.
All right, Andy, go ahead and tell us.
So about the same time Kaylee posted on Facebook, she she posted on a Johnstown Run Club page that I was a follower of, and I've never met her before, but I knew of her because she had done some runs on the Laurel Highlands, and she actually did an unofficial Laurel Highlands run. And she posted, and I was reading a book, and I can't remember whose book. It might have been a David Goggins book, somebody else's, I'm not sure. They were talking about Badwater, and it was like the exact same time that she posted it. And I was like, well, that sounds really cool. I think I'll go out and try it. So I got permission from my wife. She said it was okay. And that's how I ended up on her team the first year.
And I have to ask, what was so bad that first year that you're like, I'm never going back again, but then you ended up going back anyway?
Everything. It was all terrible. I hate the heat. So obviously that doesn't work well. I hate road running, and it's 100% road, so that's not the greatest. And sleep deprivation the first year was just terrible. Kaylee's mom was the crew chief that year, and her and I think, had a battle on who could sleep the least. And I unfortunately ended up taking a nap at one point that I think I got more sleep than she did. But I think I might have had an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And she finished in 40 hours that year. So we were out there a long time. And I just, that second night, I don't know how people can run through it because I couldn't even crew through it. And I was just so worn down at the end of it. I was like, I'm done. I got my experience here. I don't have to ever try that again.
I can completely understand that. Was that your first year ever crewing and pacing someone?
Yeah. Well, I had paced people at more local races. The guy that actually introduced me to Laurel, I paced him. That was my first real long run, even. But I had never crewed, so I had no idea what I was doing. And Badwater's a tough place to learn because you're in deep with it, and you're stopping every. I think we stopped every mile and a half that year. So it was all hands on deck learning experience for my first time crewing somebody.
Yeah, that is a wild first race to ever go out and crew. And I assume maybe Marissa, this was your first race crewing and pacing as well, which I'll kind of get into in a second. But this is a race where you can literally see your runner as much as you want. It could be every mile, it could be every 2 miles, it could be every 4 miles. And it is, as Andy said, all hands on deck, where you are there to help your runner get from the basin all the way up to the Mount Whitney portal. So it is nonstop for not only the runner, but also the crew and pacers, involved as well. So love that that's how you guys met and that you got into running this way. It's super cool to hear everyone's journey. It's, why I love this podcast and what I have on, or, all the people I have on the podcast. But Marissa, let's get into how you started running, when and why, and then how you got involved with Kaylee for Badwater.
I started running when I was a kid with my dad. He had to stay in shape for the military, and I just asked him, can I go run with you? And we just do like the local 1 mile loop. And it just stuck. I've been running pretty consistently ever since. It was never anything very long, but like 5Ks, and then the longest I ran was a half marathon. I became friends with Kaylee at the gym, and she was doing all these crazy long distances, which I didn't even know distances like that, like races for that existed. So, yeah, she was running trails, and I love hiking. I love running. So I thought, I think this is something I want to get into. It's two things that I love. So yeah, I signed up for my first trail race, which was a local race, and then I met, as you do at races, you just meet people while you're running with them or before or after. And a lady, you know, told me, I think you should try and run this 50-mile race. So didn't take much to convince me to do that. And Kaylee kindly said that she would pace me for it. So, and then, yeah, I was hooked, and, we became really good friends, and I was so excited to support all of her Badwater stuff because she's just amazing. And yeah, so she had me help her mom crew Salton Sea her and two other runners. So that was great experience, and I just loved it. So she asked me to do Badwater, and
Very cool. So you
so it's been 2
originally
years in a
started
row.
or
It was
crewing
great.
her at Salton Sea, and then you went to Badwater, so you had that experience first.
Yeah, yep, in the same year. So Salton Sea in
Yeah, you
April, and
did.
then
That's
just
awesome.
Badwater in
And then
July. So I
obviously she
really
loves both of you.
dove
She's
right
had both of you on the
in.
team. She talked very highly about both of you every time we've talked, and in getting ready for me to be on this crew and be a part of the team, she was like, they have their stuff together. They're so well put together. They know me. Was super excited to be on the team and kind of join and get her to where we got to go, and which was to the finish. So this year, as if anyone doesn't know, Kaylee finished and she wanted to do things a little differently. So this year, Kaylee, can you kind of explain to us like how you approached this race and why and what you did differently?
So this year, we put a lot of emphasis on our brain and getting our brain where we needed to be, because last year was a very, very rough year. Just mentally, I was so focused on the time goal that I wanted, and whenever I fell off of that time goal, my entire race ended, and just everything was just a heck of a hike to the finish. It was very rough, and then post race, I struggled a lot mentally. I had to get a therapist and everything because of it. It was just very, very rough, and I knew that going back, I couldn't have that experience again because it just was very, very unhealthy. So I worked like really closely with my therapist and Andrew and my coach to try to figure out how the heck do we get me out there and still run a time that I can be proud of and have fun with it though. Like, how can I combine old Kaylee that used to only run for fun with new Kaylee that likes to compete and run fast? So eventually, after working with my therapist and everything, she had the lovely idea that we should have split charts, but I don't know them. And my coach said that I should just run based on feel, like don't look at my watch or anything. And so we kind of put everything together, and Andrew wanted me to run based on heart rate. So after putting everything together, Andrew made up 3 different split charts. I didn't look at them. I have no clue what was written on them or what the splits were supposed to be. I don't even know what the exact times were set up for. I think there was like a 30, 31, and 33, but I'm not even sure. And so the goal was that I was just going to run and go by feel, and that the crew would tell me like if I should slow down or like speed up or slow down if I started out too fast or anything, but I wouldn't know if I was slowing down from a 30-hour pace or a 33-hour pace, because I would have no clue what pace chart I was on. So the goal was to, because I wouldn't know where I was at, then in the middle of the race I couldn't have a crash because I fell off my splits because I didn't know my splits. So that was the goal, and I really just focused on not looking at my watch. It took a lot of discipline because I'm so used to hearing my watch go off every mile and just looking at it. So making sure I didn't do that and keeping my heart rate down under 150. We monitored the whole time, which I think was really helpful, especially in the hottest sections of the race. Andrew came in clutch with some really good plans, and we just followed them, and we were able to keep our head in check. And I think this is the first race that I think I could ever say that we're just proud of running.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that. And now that we have Andy back, so we briefly just went over the splits and how we approached this year, like, well, how Kaylee approached this year with her time charts and not knowing them. So can you go over how you helped Kaylee kind of set up those time sheets and not tell her about them?
Yeah, well, she kind of knew a little bit about them. We didn't go through all the details, but what I really just did was I looked at last year's splits, and I knew that at the beginning part of the race last year, the first like almost half until we got into Panamint, I knew she could do that again, and I knew she probably wasn't going to slow down. So I asked her if, like, I make these initial paces a little bit slower, will you actually slow down and follow them, or are you just going to do what you did last year? And she basically said she was going to do what she did last year. So I kept the first, like 60 or 70 miles pretty much the same. And then I just assumed if we made sure she fueled well enough and stay hydrated, and if it wasn't 125 like it was last year, that there was a good chance that she could at least hold a pretty reasonable pace after. So I kind of changed the splits around a little bit for the second half, what I thought she could realistically do. So I ended up with like 29, 45, 31 something, and then 33 something was kind of like the C. And then she was like, well, how do we do it so I don't know which one I'm on or where I'm at? And that was her therapist coming up with that plan. So I can't take any credit for that. I just kind of came up with the pace charts, and then she took it from there.
Very cool. Yeah. And we just briefly went over all of that. So Kaylee talked about how she worked with her therapist and then came in with you to help dial in everything. And I'm going to kind of backtrack, and you guys are like, oh, what the hell? But Marissa, tell us a little about last year, being there and experiencing this, rough year. I know we've all kind of talked about it while we were at Badwater this year, but can you share with us like kind of what happened and, from a different point of view of Kaylee, of like how things kind of went south for her?
Well, it was, as you guys know, last year was an extremely hot year, and the race just started out wild with rain and sandstorms, which thankfully we missed most of that. But the weather was just insane last year. They had one of the highest drop rates overall. So, like going into it, the weather was just really, really rough, like really strong headwinds from the beginning. But she was doing awesome. But I think there was an issue with nutrition. Definitely last year, nutrition was not dialed in. And just with, trying to get enough calories in along with the heat. And I think we really lacked last year the amount of salt and just getting her cooled off. I think her heart rate was getting really high last year, and we weren't able to get it down quick enough. Uh, so that just, once we reached, what was it?
Yeah.
Inanimate. Where's with the food? Yeah. Part of the day. And it just really knocked her on her ass. Which, I mean, it was a lot of people. Like, it was just so incredibly hot. It was a rough go from there. But I think it also was the mental aspect. You reach these lows, you realize you're not reaching like the specific splits that you wanted. And then it's really hard to dig out of those ruts, which I think we've all experienced. But, she worked on it over the course of an entire year. The nutrition was on point, and the mental game was fabulous. But yeah, it was just, not eating well, the heat, the mental aspect, it all just, caught up to her and everybody, especially the sleep deprivation too. Going
Yeah,
into the
for
second
sure.
night,
And
it's just so hard to dig out
I
of
guess,
that.
Andy, anything that you have to add off of last year, like not to sit here and be like, oh, what went wrong with Kaylee last year, but just to realize like how far she came this year, anything that you can add on top of that?
Yeah, I mean, her nutrition plan last year was cheese sticks, and I don't think that works very well in the desert in the heat that we saw. And so this year, I mean, it was all gels, but it was every 30 minutes, and it didn't matter how she was feeling, she was going to take in the gel. So we knew she was going to get enough this year, even though she didn't really want any real food, she didn't really take any real food. So I think we all assumed there would be a low at some point last year, but once she hit it, it was it was basically the rest of the race, and we just kind of kept her moving as best we could, but it was like an 80-20 interval for the rest of the race, which it's like, I don't know, 70 more miles or 80 more miles from there. So it was a slow grind for the rest of the race when she had a fantastic first half. So she was running so well, and then it just flipped on a switch right at Panamint. She took she laid down in one of the little cottages, and she came out a completely different person.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
her
I saw
soul
a
left
photo, and
body
it
at
does
that
not
point.
look like your soul is in your body in that photo.
It was not.
Yeah. So Kaylee, what do you have to say? I definitely want to dive into nutrition, but before we get into that, like last year, going to this year, knowing that you weren't going to be focused on, pace or like where you were in the race, obviously you've grown so much in getting a therapist and dealing with the mental aspect of things, and then also training and just getting better and becoming faster and a stronger runner in a year. You've grown so much. But what do you think were the things that were like top tier for you to be where you are now, getting ready to toe this line? Because I am literally making the YouTube video for my training, and I have a video of you saying like, I feel really ready. And it's weird because I don't usually feel ready. So like when I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh, like it's so cool to see that, knowing now that like you finished and you did so well, but you really had the confidence. And where do you think, like that came from?
Yeah, I don't really know because I mean, I knew I know physically I am in better shape. Like I wasn't worried about the physical aspect at all because I knew physically I could run the times. I just knew mentally I wasn't sure if I could run what I wanted to run. So I think the most important thing was definitely nutrition, like they're saying. I don't want to discount that because my nutrition plan was, well, we had an actual plan. Every 30 minutes we had a gel, no matter what, and we didn't miss it. We had like over 60 gels, which is crazy to think about. And then I really think it was just mentally, I was really nervous going in, but I was nervous the plan wasn't going to work, but I also knew that it was better than no plan. So I was just really hoping and praying that what we'd worked up to and all the work we put in the past year to get a better head mentally, that it was going to work. And I knew, I was talking to my coach a couple weeks before the race, and he said, I bet no matter what happens at Badwater this year, you're not going to be happy with the result. And I knew that he was right. So I knew that I had to figure something out. And then that's whenever I was started working like really hard to figure out how can I make sure that I'm happy with my finish, because we didn't want a repeat of last year. So I think my brain just was the most important part.
Yeah, for sure. And we all say this, and I don't think a lot of us really think too much into it, but we do these ultras and we're like, it's not physical, it's so mental. And yet, like, without a doubt, we're always working on mentally overcoming something, you know what I mean? And it's not very widely spoken about, but majority of the time it's like the struggle we find within ourselves, whether it's we're not fast enough or we don't get this goal or whatever the case may be. And you had, smack dab in the middle of a 135-mile race last year, it hit you where you had to struggle to come through, of like, you weren't where you wanted to be. You knew you could do better, and yet you weren't, and you couldn't get out of it. And, that's just a hard struggle in anything, especially to be only 70 miles in. And it was, as Marissa said, extremely hot last year, to the point of like record high heats. And, I'm sure that didn't help. So this year coming in mentally way stronger, nutrition dialed in is amazing, and I feel like hydration, cooling was all dialed in as well. I remember like Marissa and Andy and I, like, we would run with the sprayer this year and hose you down as much as we could with cold water. And then we also had ice bandanas almost getting changed every 2 miles. And it was just something that I think, even though it wasn't as hot as last year, that cooling really played a huge effect in this year for sure.
Yeah, I think that helps with my heart rate a lot too and keeping my heart rate down. And it's just like the little things that stuff you just kind of learn from doing it year after year. You just learn to pick up those little techniques, I feel like.
Yeah, for sure. So Andy, what would you say this year was like your most proud moment in this race with Kaylee?
Well, getting through Panamint was definitely a highlight because that's just the wall that we needed to get over from last year. And actually, the last 2 years, that's really been her low point. So getting out of there, even before we started the climb, was just a big success. And then that climb was brutal, regardless of how you're feeling. It's, I think, hard for everybody. But then the definite highlight for me was when we got through Lone Pine and we got on the Portal Road. I started doing the calculations and I knew she was really close to her biggest goal, and not necessarily the 29:45 goal that I kind of just made up for, but her ultimate goal was to have the female 20 to 29 course record. And I was looking at the math, and I may have miscalculated it. I thought it was 13 miles. It might have been 11. I'm not exactly sure, but we needed to do 15-minute miles for the rest of it. And with the amount of vert we had, it was not going to be easy. And it sounds easy to go 15-minute miles, but I think there's like, I don't know, 4,000 or 5,000 feet of climbing, and you've already run 120 some miles. So it wasn't going to be an easy task. And when I told her, it was like the second I told her, she was like, okay, let's go. And I think we dropped like a 12-minute mile the first mile with her, and then maybe a 13-minute mile, or maybe it was even 11 and 12. And I'm like, all right, we can slow down a little bit. We don't have to do that for the next 11 miles. But just watching her go from there, and we all took turns with her. So each pacer jumped in and I think we did like 2 miles each. And then at the end, we jumped in for like a mile each at the end, just to change it up and keep her going. And it was just so awesome to see her for that 11 or 13 miles, just hammer it.
Yeah, and I have to say, I think right after you told her, Marissa went out, and I think you two were nailing like super fast miles too, because I remember you coming in the van and being like, she's ready to go. So share with us that experience of, after she finds out that she needs to hit like 15-minute miles, going up this crazy incline up to the finish.
It's like something just like flipped in her brain, and then she was like all determination, and it was just go go go. Like it blew me away. Like she was like so dialed in, like no talking or anything, which like we totally understood. And like the paces we were holding just blew my mind. Like, and I mean, and it was hard. It was like those the first 2 miles I did with her, I was like, oh my God, like this is terrible. but like but like you could tell she just wanted it so bad, and I think that just kept all of us going. And it took what, a little less than 3 hours to get up there. And think, like, looking back on it now, it felt like no time at all. Like we were all just so pumped and so excited for
Yeah,
her.
and I
Like
have to say
it
this.
was
I'll
just,
let
it
Kaylee
was
kind of
such a
chime in
good
a second,
feeling.
but I remember Andy's like, I'm gonna tell her, and we're all like, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Tell her the times. And within that, I felt like we got up the mountain in like 2 seconds. Like even though it was under 3 hours, I felt like we just like flip, flip, flip. Before you know it, everyone's freaking out because we're like, we have less than a mile. I was like, holy shit, like we're almost there. And it was, again, like everyone, we both said, everyone said, it was so awesome just to see that energy. But yet at the same time, as Marissa mentioned, she didn't say a word. She was just cruising, but you could see that determination and that maybe like zombie look in her eyes, like I'm just going to the finish. And we were all there to push and support, and it was amazing. And when I was out there with her at one point, I remember we had Victoria near us, and she like we passed her, and I'm like, don't go too crazy, like don't pass Gavin Barry just yet, but get in front of her, see what you can do. And at one point, this is when Kaylee was trying not to throw up, but was almost throwing up. And it was a crazy thing that we were going through. But I remember Victoria got behind us and like just started coasting behind us because Kaylee was cruising as someone that just ran, like we said, 120-ish miles and, just booking it. And it was so cool to see someone that is so young, Kaylee, and someone that is older and more experienced as Victoria, just hopping behind and like following her lead because whatever Kaylee had, she wanted to make sure she was right there and being along with it because Kaylee was just like rocking and rolling, which was super cool to experience. As a pacer, to know like another runner was trying to hop on and hang out and like stick with you with that was super, super cool. But Kaylee, like what went through your mind when you were told like, hey, if you want to hit your goal of getting the course record, you need to hit these miles?
It was kind of crazy because I I figured Andrew was gonna tell me my splits at the end. Like I told him he could tell me. I think I said like the last 50K he could tell me if he thought it would motivate me. But I also think at some point around like the 50K, I told him I was like I don't want to know right now. But I kind of figured at the end he was gonna tell me, but I still wasn't really sure. But whenever he did tell me, I just knew like we had to lock in because I in my brain I knew that I couldn't go for like knowing that I ran so well all day and then just be lazy up the hill and because then I knew I wouldn't be satisfied with myself and I didn't want another race I couldn't be proud of. So I knew if we worked hard and we left everything out there, then it was possible. And I feel like at the end, like once we hit that last checkpoint, I think it was actually right after I was with Marissa. I think Liz was supposed to jump in, but I wanted Andrew because I wanted an update on my splits quick. And Andrew told me like we could slow down to this pace and still finish. And I feel like around then we probably had maybe like 6 miles left, 5 miles, I don't know, something like that. I was like kind of realizing that we could do it because I was like, we could walk the whole way if we walked with a purpose the whole way and still do it, which was crazy. And then eventually I realized we could go 32. I might have been with Andrew, and he was like, we're actually looking at sub 32 now. And it was just crazy to know that whatever the heck was happening in my brain, we were able to lock in so much and just finish like that.
Yeah, it was epic, amazing beyond epic to watch you do it, and it was so cool. And it was so funny. I have video of you when like we're getting ready to switch runners to go in and pace you, and you keep apologizing, like, "Sorry, I want Andy," and we're like, "No, like we don't care. Tell us who you want. Like, we will literally give you whoever at any point." We weren't. It was just so funny because you were so empathetic at that point still. And all we cared about was like just getting you as fast as we could up the mountain, which was super cool. Yeah, I remember a couple times she kept apologizing, and I have video of it, and it's literally Kaylee going, "I'm so sorry," and we're like, "Shut up!" But super, super cool, and thank you so much for sharing that. And you really did push like beyond anything I could ever imagine going up that mountain, going up Mount Whitney. It was insane, and so many people have told me like, "Oh my gosh, her splits going up were amazing." So huge shout out to you, Kaylee, and for everyone else crewing and pacing and getting her up there. But Marissa, I didn't ask you, and I want to ask you, what for you was kind of that one moment in the race where you were like so proud, so honored to be there and crewing and pacing Kaylee? Because obviously this was your second year and you've been with her and you've known her for quite some time. So what was that one moment for you? Okay.
Well, there were kind of two. The first one was when we were heading up Father Crowley after the tournament, which I heard that same, or I paced that same section with her last year, and that was a major low point. And this year, she was hitting a bit of a low point, but then we all learned a lot from last year. Like we got to the next stop, like she was just very quiet, and we got her some more salt, and then like I don't know, 15 minutes later, here comes Kaylee back. Like she started chatting, we started joking around, and I was just like, this is amazing because last year this section was so difficult. Like it was really rough on her, and now like we knew, okay, she probably needs a little more salt. We got more salt into her. She's just been doing so great the entire race. And like, she like came out of that low like so quickly. And it was just like so great to experience that and just to see that change. And then like just this, the biggest one was coming up Mount Whitney. And like, it was so emotional. Like the last, like, I think it was my last mile that I did with her. Like, I was like getting really choked up and telling her, like, don't make me cry right now. Like, it was just like, it was just an incredible experience. It was like so close to the end, and like you already could start reflecting on like how well it went. And it just, it
I
was
couldn't agree more. And it was amazing. And it was so truly inspiring to see Kaylee push so hard towards the end and like genuinely just see that just determination and grit. And like you were gonna do whatever you could to get up that mountain as quickly as possible. It was amazing. So I will ask Kaylee, like, what was your proudest moment through this year at Badwater 135?
I feel like there were a couple times when I was like, oh, this is actually going well. I feel like, whenever, like when I was going up Town Pass, I could feel that I was slower than last year. Like I could just feel I was, but I didn't like let that bother me. I was like, I'm just doing what I need to do. So I feel like even the beginning, I feel like that was like a good positive thing. And then when I got to Panamint Springs, we were there to pick up my soul, get my soul and leave, and take my soul with me because it has been there for an entire year. And I feel like that's what we did. I gave Star a big hug, and she was like, oh my gosh, you're smiling. And I said, we're picking up my soul. And then I went to the bathroom, and Marissa creamed me back up, and then we left. And I left with my soul, and I feel like that was just like a really, really cool moment to know where that even if I hit a low later in the race and the rest of my race was a wreck and we had to walk all the way in, at least we made it through that point where I hadn't really made it through the other years. And then there were like two other big ones. The one was whenever I hit a low up Father Crowley. It was probably my worst low of the race, I would think. It was after someone had just finished facing me, and then I had to sit in the van for the first time because I like went over, and I remember I was at the back of the van and I had some Coke, and I remember you guys got my ice all together, and I was like, I'm just really sad. I remember saying, I'm just really sad right now, or something like that. And then I felt like I was gonna throw up, and I like got sick. So I sat in the van. I was gonna sit in there for 5 minutes, but I think I was only in there for like 3 or 4, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to start walking again. And then I definitely had to walk for a little bit longer. But I remember going up in that low. I think I was with Andrew. He was like, I always get you in this low. And I was like, yeah, you always get me in the low, but you always get me out. And I remember thinking that even though I felt like not good and I was in a low, it was nowhere near it was like nowhere near the low that I was in last year. So it just like felt good to know that even though I was struggling, I was still better than last year. And then I think the best part of the race was whenever we were going up Mount Whitney and I just like locked in. But it was near the end. I don't know who I was with the first time I said it. I have no clue which of the three of you I was with. But whenever I said, I think coach is going to be really proud of me, and I think I might be proud of myself. I think I said it to all of you, but I don't know who I said it to first. But I feel like that was very big.
Yeah. Well, I know you definitely said it to me. Did she say it to either of you two?
Yeah.
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 Yes. Yeah. It was a very moving moment to hear you tell me you were proud of yourself. Because I know prior, and mind you, I was the new person coming in, but that was one thing you were like, last year, like I just wasn't proud and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, like that's so hard to hear, especially at such a young age to hear someone say that, and I think very highly of you. So when you were going up there and you're like, I think I'm proud of myself, I'm like, you better be fucking proud of yourself. What do you mean? uh, and then Andy and Marissa, you both said she said the same thing to you.
Yeah, she said the same thing to me. I don't know. I think it was at the very last, so
Yeah.
I would have been the
It
last
was
one, I
great
think, to hear it, but she definitely said it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we are all so proud of you. I'm going to speak on behalf of Andy and Marissa because all of us are proud of you. You did such an amazing job. And I want to touch base on this because we kind of did and then we kind of left it. And I am going back to you, Kaylee, but your nutrition this year was on point compared to last year. So Andy had briefly said last year's nutrition was cheese sticks. So I'm glad you dropped the cheese sticks, but kind of explain to us this year what your plan was, and then explain like how it went and all that stuff.
So after last year, when my coach kind of found out that I didn't know how to fuel, we started working on it because I think he just kind of assumed that I knew how, and so I never brought it up because I was like, I know what I'm doing. I didn't know what I was doing. So once he found that out, he started helping me with my nutrition. And so we've been working on it. And I feel like by the end of last year, I was able to get pretty dialed in. I think my 24-hour races like helped a lot of practicing my nutrition and learning how to do it. So this year for Badwater, the plan was to do a gel every half an hour, and then I also did have peanut butter and jelly. I think I had 2 peanut butter and jelly, but I think the last one I had was at mile like 60 something. And then later in the race, I was like, oh my gosh, I need to eat real food. And you guys were like, no, as long as you're taking your gels, you're getting enough calories. So I was good with that because I didn't want to eat real food. And I was able to just keep taking gels every half an hour and just keep putting them down. Even whenever I didn't feel great, they were still able to go down. And so that was the main thing. And then I was switching my bottles, 1 bottle of Tailwind, 1 bottle of water. I had no clue what I was on. I just trusted that you guys were doing that. And then for like my salt tabs and everything, that was completely regulated by my crew because a lot of that I feel like is based off of time and everything. So I did that. And if I ever got to a point where I was like, I thought I needed salt because like I could tell that my fingers were getting swollen, whatever pacer I was with, I was just like, hey, my fingers are fat. And they were like, okay, we're going to get you figured out then.
Yeah, that was me with the fat fingers. I remember we were talking about something, and I was like, or you mentioned something. I was like, "Are you swollen? Or your hand swollen?" You're like, "Yeah, actually, my ring is tight." I'm like, "We need to get you more sodium because you're too water, like too much water in you." And Marissa did mention too that like at one point she was kind of having a low, and we gave her some salt, and she like came back to life in that aspect. So we did try to keep track, and I'm sure we may have dropped the ball once or twice, but we tried to keep track and getting you water or getting you electrolytes and your salt, and then also caffeine. So we did give you caffeine here and there to bring you back to life. I know one time like it was random and I'm like, I think we need to just give her caffeine. So we started giving you caffeine every hour, but it was like smaller doses to like kind of help you trickle in that way compared to doing it every 4 hours or 2 hours, whatever we were doing instead. And that kind of helped at one point. But no, it was an awesome race. I'm glad you got your nutrition dialed in and, you went out there and crushed this year. And something that we have yet to talk about is that you got to meet Sally McRae this year because she was doing some filming on the documentary for Mount to Coast. And you had a few freak out moments. And I think behind the scenes, so maybe not Andy, but I think Marissa and I both were like fangirling just as bad, but you fangirled so bad that we were just kind of like, oh, we can stand in the back and let Kaylee handle this. But tell us that experience of you getting to meet Sally out there.
Oh my god, Sally is famous. And I got to meet her. And it was crazy because she was supposed to run the race, but then she had surgery and like was injured and couldn't run. But she came out to film as the co-director with Billy Yang for a documentary with Mount to Coast. And so I got to like be a part of that. And it was crazy when I actually got to meet her. But then just it kept us moving out on the course. We kept saying that we had to do it for Sally and how she was at Stovepipe Wells. We said next stop is Sally. And so it was just kind of funny, and we got to just like make a bunch of jokes about it and everything. You guys know what I'm talking about. And it was just like really crazy to meet her because she's literally such a famous runner, but she's just like a normal, genuine human being, and she was so kind and everything like that.
Yeah. So, Marissa, I have to ask you, how was it witnessing Kaylee meet Sally? And then also, like, with yourself being a runner and knowing Sally, how was that for you?
I mean, I was so excited to meet Sally, but Kaylee's excitement just
Oh, yeah.
like made it even more exciting. Like, I love watching Kaylee meet Sally. Like, of course, I wanted to meet her, but if I just got to watch Kaylee meet her, that probably would have been enough. Because
Yes,
it was just,
yes, it's so
you could
true. It
feel
was
the excitement.
truly amazing to see and witness. And I think a
Great.
couple times I remember like looking over at you and Andy, Marissa and Andy, and being like, okay, I don't think they're fangirling as hard as I am on the inside, but like deep down, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Sally McRae. But like you mentioned, Kaylee's excitement was just so exciting for myself that I'm like, I don't even think I can be as excited as this right now. So it was super, super special. That's awesome. And sadly, Andy has left us yet
Yeah.
again. But one thing I want to ask Marissa. So you've been out to Badwater 2 times, and you had the lows, you had a rough year, you had a really good year this year. But like, what is one thing that you would want to share with anyone that's looking to crew and or pace? Because if you sign up to crew Badwater, typically you're pacing. But what's like the one piece of advice that you would give to anyone that's looking to do this?
Stay patient and don't let your runner see any of the behind the scenes that are going on. Whether, any kind of little problem that's going on, the runner does not need to know about. And you just have to stay patient and just keep in mind the entire time you're out there for them. Like, yes, you're going to get exhausted and you're tired. Like, you do have to take care of yourself, but that's behind the scenes stuff. Like, you are there for that runner. So be patient and empathetic, honestly. Um, but, and have fun. I think that's the biggest thing. This year
Yeah,
we
I
had
agree.
so
This
much
year we
fun
had a
too.
blast. I had a blast last year, and obviously I was with different people, but I had a really good time this year as well. And Andy, since we have you back, what is the one thing or a few things that you would say to anyone that is interested in crewing and pacing and getting into Badwater to help a runner?
It's worth it. As much as I complained the first 2 years, uh, it's absolutely gorgeous out there. I had no clue. I thought it would be flat, ugly desert, and you get to run through some really awesome mountain ranges. It's beautiful the entire time. I don't know. It's dry heat, if that actually makes a huge difference. It's still really hot, but at least it's not humid. But it's worth it. It's really cool to be that involved in a runner's success. And I think crewing other 100 milers or even 200 milers, you're seeing the runner every 8, 10, 20 miles, whatever it is. And you know you're playing a part in their success, but with Badwater, you're necessary. It's something they require you to at least have 2 crew members, up to 4, but there's a reason because there's no aid station. So you're really on the front lines with them, helping them to get to the finish, and it's very rewarding to see them cross that finish line because you knew you had a big part in it.
Yes, yes, that's so true. And it is really, I hate to say this, but more rewarding to do Badwater because, like you mentioned, you are there the whole time. You literally start and stop with them. You see them every 2 miles. Like, how often they go to the bathroom, how often they have a low, how often they have a high, the hallucinations when that happens. Like, we are fully there for all of it. And typically, like, each person gets to experience a little bit of it all because you can change out pacers so often. I know, like, we did changing of runners every 4-ish miles, I think it was. So it was really cool to experience that. And it was awesome this year that all of us were runners. You guys had mentioned that before, like everyone could switch out. We did have another guy with us, Devin. He was a journalist for the Outside magazine, and he was out there. He did help us a ton in this effort and helped cool down Kaylee, spraying her down. Also out there, he, ran with you. He did so much, and I don't think we could have done any of this without any of us, any of the crew, any of the pacers, and then obviously Kaylee out there crushing it. But Kaylee, being the runner, hearing all of us talk and say all of this, what would you say to anyone that is looking to run Badwater 135?
I feel like if you're going to run Badwater 135, you just have to stay in the experience the whole time. Because for me, the best years I've had, the first year was obviously all about just having fun and not about time at all. But last year, I put so much emphasis on my time that I didn't actually have fun, and I didn't think about where I was at and how cool it was, like what I was actually doing. And this year, because I wasn't so focused on my time, I was still pushing myself and everything, but I let myself have fun while I was out there too, and I let myself actually look up at the stars, and I let myself look around, and I saw Joshua trees and everything like that. So I feel like whenever you're out there, to just make sure that you are enjoying the experience, because it really is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. And this is a very rare, different type of race. They call it the hardest race in the world. And I always argue this, nothing against anything with Badwater, but I think Kaylee will say Keys is hot. Keys, I think, is way hotter than Badwater, but Badwater has a different aspect because it is not a flat course, unlike the Keys in that aspect. It's, a whole different type of race, but this race is unique. It's very challenging to get into, and Kaylee is the youngest to get into it, being 18 years old at the first, and now officially 20 years old, third time finisher. And you have mentioned you don't want to go back next year. Is that still stand, or are you contemplating going back?
I think with where I'm at right now, I don't want to run Badwater next year just because I had such a good year, and I feel like I don't really have anything to prove to myself right now or to anyone else. And I think I do want to go back and run Badwater eventually, and I want to go back whenever we can win it. And so it's going to be a couple years before I feel confident that we are good enough to do that. So eventually I would. And I still want to be involved. Like if someone needs a crew or pacer or anything, I would definitely love to go out, but just not to run it yet.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we said earlier. So it's nice to know that that's still sticking. Like you said, one day you're going to go out and crush it and, crush the course and just take overall. And I can't wait for that. I hope you go out and do that in the timely manner and get yourself ready for it for sure. But I'm sure when Andy's ready to go race it, you'll be out there crewing and pacing him for sure.
Oh, I'm crew chief. He doesn't get a choice.
I love it. And super, super cool. So thank you, all of you, for being on here and sharing everything. It's super insightful. And I'm sure tons of people will get tons of knowledge off of the Badwater course and how to crew and pace. And if anyone has any questions, they can always reach out. I will have each of our socials on the description below. That way they can reach out to link up, to ask questions, all that good stuff. So thank you guys so much for being on the podcast. And I will see everyone in the next one.
Thank you, Liz.